Hi there, welcome back. So, we continue today with the most significant contribution Kamban made to Tamil literature and to humanity in general is his definition and clarification of love, anbu. This word, unfortunately, has been grossly misused in recent years in a restricted sense or confused to denote only the physical aspects of love. According to Kamban, love refers to deep devotion or faith with perfect fusion of the minds. If this love is directed towards the divine, bhakti, tuya anbu, it becomes extremely unselfish and absolute. Love towards other human beings is mixed with varying degrees of selfishness. Love, which comes close to divine love, is that of the mother to the child, Tayanbu. Love between man and woman is kadal. Love between brothers or family members is pasam. Love between friends is natpu. Kamban exploited the characters in Ramayanam to emphasize these subtle differences, as we'll discuss below. But it's beautiful that only in Tamil language we have all these different definitions of love. So the first one we're going to talk about is love, kadal. Kamban demonstrated his concept of love and chastity between man and woman using Raman and Sita as the ideal couple. He used Ravanan as an example of a very learned man degrading himself with infatuation, just kamam, with somebody else's wife. Perhaps this is Kamban's way of disagreeing with previous references to unchaste women, Paratayar, in the literature by married men. In the following poem that I'm going to read in a few minutes, Kamban describes the feelings of love that develop spontaneously between Raman and Sita. When their eyes met, says Kamban, there was fusion between their feelings. Nilaypedu unarvum ondrida. As if to re emphasize the point, he added that because their minds fused with each other, there was mutual exchange of their hearts. Ullam ஈர்த்தலால் மாரிப்புக்கு இதயம் எய்தினர். So the song goes like this. என்ன அரு நலத்தினால் இணையல் நின்றுழி கண்ணொடு கண் இணை கவ்வி ஒன்றை ஒன்று உண்ணவும் நிலைபெது உணர்வும் ஒன்றிட அண்ணலும் நோக்கினான் அவளும் நோக்கினாள் பருகிய நோக்கு எனும் பாசத்தால் பிணித்து ஒருவரை ஒருவர் தம் உள்ளம் ஈர்த்தலால் வரிசிலை அண்ணலும் வாழ்கண் நங்கையும் இருவரும் மாறிப்புக்கு இதயம் எய்தினார். மிதிலை காட்சி படலம் 35-37. The second form of love the second thing that he talked about was chastity, karpa. The two significant lessons from Kamban's story are the value of chastity in both man and woman, and the concept of one man, one woman in marital life. These are brought about in Sita's own words when Hanuman met her in Ravanan's palace garden, Ashokavanam. These words were spoken when Hanuman asked Sita whether she had any specific message for Raman. Please tell Raman that I still remember the promise that he made on the eve of our marriage, that he will not see another woman even through his mind, she said. This is how high and noble one could get in married life. வந்து என்னை கரம் பற்றிய வைக்கல்வாய் இந்த இப்பிறவிக்கு இரு மாதரை சிந்தையாலும் தொடேன் என்று செவ்வரம் தந்த வார்த்தை திருச்செவி சாற்றுவாய். Sita then reiterated her own steadfastness by saying that if by chance she died in captivity, the only thing she would pray was that she should be born again and Raman should come back and touch her body. ஈண்டு நான் இருந்து இன் உயிர் மாயினும் மீண்டு வந்து பிறந்து தன்மேனியை தீண்டலாவது ஓர் தீவினை தீர்வரம் வேண்டினால் தொழுது என்று விளம்புவாய். சூடாமணி படலம் 34-35. Okay. The third one is about Sita, the queen of chastity, Karpakarasi. Not satisfied with his efforts to stress the value of chastity, Kamban once again makes Hanuman to reinforce his points in the course of his report to Raman of what he saw in Ashokavanam and how Sita was getting along. Hanuman said, I did see Sita with my very eyes. I did see Sita, the embodiment of chastity, across the sea in Ilangai. Please forget your sorrow and doubts. கண்டனன் கற்பினுக்கு அணியை கண்களால் தென்திரை அலைக்கடல் இலங்கை தென்னகர் அண்டர்நாயக இனி துரத்தி ஐயமும் பண்டு உளதுயரம் என்று அனுமன் பண்ணுவான். To assure Raman that Sita had not changed at all during her confinement, Hanuman continued. Her behavior was impeccable, becoming of your wife, becoming of the daughter-in-law of King Dasharathan, and becoming of the daughter of the king of Midilai Janakan. Please rest assured she is all right. உன் பெருந்தேவி என்னும் உரிமைக்கும் உன்னை பெற்ற மண் பெருமருகி என்னும் வாய்மைக்கும் மிதிலை மன்னன் தன் பெருந்தனையை என்னும் தகைமைக்கும் தலைமை சான் என் பெருந்தெய்வம் ஐயா இன்னமும் கேட்டி என்பான். Tiruvadi Tolida Padalam 25 and 26. Okay, the next thing is about the universal brotherhood, Sagodarattuvam. Okay, that's about universal brotherhood. So to demonstrate his vision of universal brotherhood, Kamban drew examples from Raman's own family, as well as from that of Ravanan. After Raman's departure to the forest, Bharatan, who was away at that time, returned to Ayodhya. And he found out what happened. Along with his stepmother Koshalai, Bharatan decided to follow Raman and plead with him to return back. Guhan, the hunter, helped Bharatan and his retinue to cross the river in his boats. Guhan bowed towards the magnanimous lady in the boat and asked Bharatan who she was. In Bharatan's reply, Kamban packed deep emotions, remorse, and brotherly love in 3 short sentences. She is the senior wife of the King of Kings, Dasharathan, and the unfortunate mother of the great Raman, a treasure which she has lost because I was born. சுற்றத்தார் தேவருடும் தொழநின்ற கோஷலையை தொழுது நோக்கி கொற்றத்தார் குறிசில் இவர் ஆர் என்று குகன் வினவ கோக்கள் வைகும் முற்றத்தான் முதல் தேவி 3 உலகம் ஈன்னை பெற்றத்தால் பெரும் செல்வம் யான் பிறத்தலால் துறந்த பெரியாள் என். Gangai Khan Padalam 64. Raman's friendship knew no boundaries and did not discriminate between friends or enemies. He did not even exclude members from the monkey family or the demon family if his friendship was sought with sincerity. He first embraced Guhan, who was an illiterate belonging to a low caste. Then he embraced Sugrivan, the monkey king who was ill-treated by his brother Vali. Finally, he accepted Vibhishanan, the brother of Ravanan, like the demon king. To make it more effective, Kamban made these words come directly from Raman when Vibhishanan sought refuge with him. Raman said, in my family, there were 4 brothers. With Guhan, we became 5. When Sugrivan, the king of mountains, joined us, we became 6. Now you have come to us with great love and affection, so that we are now 7. Our father will certainly be proud of us. குஹனோடும் ஐவர் ஆனே முன்பு பின் குன்று சூழ்வான் மகனோடும் அறுவர் ஆனேம் எம்முழை அன்பின் வந்த அகன் அமர்காதல் ஐய நின்னொடும் எழுவர் ஆனேம் புகழ் அரும் கானம் தந்து புதல்வரால் பொலிந்தான் நுந்தை. Going to Ravanan's camp, one finds the same kind of deep attachment of the 2 brothers, Vibhishanan and Kumbhakarnan, both of whom tried their utmost to put some sense into their brother's head in vain. Vibhishanan tried his best to persuade Kumbhakarnan to leave Ravanan and join Raman in the name of virtue. In a few moving passages, Kamban packed all the emotions associated with the conflicts in their values, namely their helplessness in correcting their brother's sinful actions, their acceptance of the inevitable situation gracefully, finally, their parting from each other, realizing at the same time that this is going to mark the end of their brotherly relationship. In responses to Vibhishan's plea, Kumbhakarnan, who was himself a very learned man, said, in order to enjoy the transient worldly pleasures, I have been brought up by our brother who fed me, clothed me, and prepared me for the war. My duty, therefore, is to be on his side. I would rather die on his behalf instead of fleeing to the other side. My dear brother, do not worry about me. Please go and join Raman as quickly as you can. நீர்கோல வாழ்வை நச்சி நெடிது நாள் வளர்த்து பின்னை போர்க்கோலம் செய்துவிட்டார்க்கு உயிர் கொடாது அங்கு போகேன் தார்கோல மேனி மைந்த என் துயர் தவிர்த்து ஆகின் கார்கோல மேனியானை கூடுதி கடிதின் ஏகி. Kumbhakarnan வதைப்படலம் 155. Kumbhakarnan then becomes philosophical and says, when the time comes, everything has to come to an end. No matter how badly one may cherish it, there is no one who appreciates this truth more than you. Please do not feel sorry for me. ஆகுவது ஆகும் காலத்து அழிவதும் அழிந்து சிந்தி போகுவது அயலே நின்று போற்றினும் போதல் திண்ணம் சேகு அறத் தெளிந்தோர் நின்னில் யார் உளர் வருத்தம் செய்யாது ஏகுதி எம்மை நோக்கி இரங்கலை என்றும் உள்ளாய். In the following poem that I'm going to read in a few minutes, the parting embraces of the two brothers, the hesitating slow retreat of Vibhishanan, his eyes full of tears, leaving his brother with the longing, lingering look behind are described. The thought that this would mark the end of his brotherly relationship ran through Vibhishanan's mind. என்று அவன் தன்னை மீட்டும் எடுத்து மார்பு இறுகப் புள்ளி நின்று நின்று இறங்கி ஏங்கி நிறைகனால் நெடிது நோக்கி இன்னும் தவிர்ந்தது அன்றே உடன்பிறப்பு என்று விட்டான் வென்றி வெந்திரளினானும் அவன் அடித்தளத்து வீழ்ந்தான். Kumbhakarnan வதைப்படலம் 166 to 167. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is forgiveness. One of the noblest qualities of man is forgiveness, which had been described as divine. Raman's magnanimity is revealed when, at the close of the first day of the battle, he found Ravanan exhausted and said, "What a man you are! You are shattered like the petals of the pulai flower, pulai poo. You better go away today and come back tomorrow to resume our fight." ஆள் ஐயா உனக்கு அமைந்தன மாருதம் அறைந்த பூளை ஆயின கண்டனை இன்று போய் போர்க்கு நாளை வா என நல்கினன் நாக இளங்கமுகின் வாளை தாவுரு கோஷல நாடுடைய வள்ளல். முதற் போர் புரிபடலம் 255. When Dasharathan was sent down from heaven to appease Raman, he requested his son to ask for a boon. Anxious to have his stepmother Kaikeyi forgiven for all she had done, Raman realized that if he asked his father directly to excuse Kaikeyi, he would not comply with his request. He therefore requested Dasharathan, "I want the one person whom you abandoned as wicked to be my mother, whom I worship. I also want your son Baradan to be my brother again." Lesser mortals than Raman would not have asked for forgiveness for a person like Kaikeyi. Here it goes. ஆயினும் உனக்கு அமைந்தது ஒன்று உரை என அழகன் தீயல் என்று நீ துறந்த என் தெய்வமும் மகனும் தாயும் தம்பியும் ஆம் வரம் தருக என தாழ்ந்தான் வாய் திறந்து எழுந்து ஆர்த்தன உயிர் எல்லாம். மீட்சி படலம் 128. So the next one is about Kamban and Valmiki. So I'm going to talk about the comparisons. Though Kamban followed the original story by Valmiki, he certainly did not choose to undertake a translation of the same for two reasons. First, he knew that in general, translations never have the same impact on people as the originals. Secondly, by choosing the popular Valmiki story, Kamban was in a position to introduce his own ethical messages to his society in a smooth manner. By keeping the main story intact, there was enough latitude for him to change the scenario to suit his own cultural atmosphere. For example, he depicted Raman as the incarnation of Tirumar because that was accepted trend during the days of the Bhakti movement. Throughout the story, however, he maintained that by using the latter name, he was in reality referring to the divine. Secondly, small changes in the story put him in a better position to project the weakness of his society as he perceived them: overindulgence in sensual pleasures, the role of unchaste women in the society, the lack of seriousness in observing chastity in both males and female, and above all, a general deterioration in moral standards were some of the observations he wished to address with Valmiki's story as his background. With this end in mind, he had removed, added, or modified sections of the original story as he thought fit. So, in conclusion, Kamban made intelligent use of Valmiki's story, introduced appropriate changes in accordance with the tradition and culture of the Tamil people, and presented his own ideologies to rectify social problems. To reduce the sectarian animosities arising out of the Bhakti movement, he stressed the concept of the Supreme Being, Mudarkaranan, notwithstanding the different names. To minimize disruption of married life by uncontrolled passions and the involvement of unchaste women, he introduced the one man, one woman concept as his central theme. To improve universal brotherhood, regardless of caste, creed, or color, he set up the example of Raman, Guhan, Sugrivan, and Vibhiranan. To emphasize the nobility of forgiveness, he made Raman skillfully maneuver, Dasharathan forgive Kaikeyi. Finally, Kamban's genius may be ascribed to his deep moral conviction and idealism, to his capacity to express them with his tremendous literary skill, and to his success in conveying them to ordinary folks. He first made the absolute being, Mulapurul, born in the world as a human being, that is Raman. Once in this world, Kamban made Raman go through all the sufferings like an ordinary man. At the end, virtue won. Sugrivan, the monkey king, on seeing Raman, reflected that, after all, humanism won. Humanity won. Manidam வென்றது. தேரினன் அமரர்க்கு எல்லாம் தேவர் ஆம் தேவர் அன்றே மாறி இப்பிறவில் வந்தார் மானுடர் ஆகி மன்னோ ஆறுகொள் சடிலத்தானும் அயனும் என்று இவர்கள் ஆதி வேறு உல குழுவை எல்லாம் மானுடம் வென்றது அன்றே. நட்புக்கோள் படலம் 19. So the moral is that man can win over all his obstacles if he leads a virtuous life. Aravarkai. This advice would be an excellent remedy to most of our social problems today. No wonder that Kamban is acclaimed as the king of literary kings. Kavi Chakravarti Kamban. Thanks for listening.